6 months had passed since that terrible night in the rain. Now, 5 black SUVs with golden royal seals rolled through the gates of the Williams mansion in Lagos. The vehicles moved slowly like judgment itself arriving. A woman in royal purple robes stepped out first. Behind her came another woman wearing an elegant blue gown. On her hip, she carried a baby girl dressed in white with a tiny crown on her head. The mansion guards stared with wide eyes. One nearly fell backward. This was the same woman they had thrown out 6 months ago, weak and crying. But now she looked powerful like royalty. Inside the mansion, Mrs. Williams was sipping tea. Her son Michael stood by the window. His father, Mr. Williams, read a newspaper with shaking hands. Their business was failing, but they pretended everything was fine. A guard burst into the room, breathing hard. "Madam, there are people outside. Important people with royal seals on their cars." Mrs. Williams frowned. "Tell them to leave." "They said it's about your son's wife," the guard said nervously. "And they're demanding to see you." The room went silent. Mrs. Williams's face turned pale. Michael's head snapped up. Mr. Williams dropped his newspaper. "Claire?" Mrs. Williams whispered. The double doors suddenly swung open. The woman in purple walked in first, her presence filling the room. Behind her came Clare, head high, fearless. Mrs. Williams opened her mouth to speak, but the woman in purple raised her hand. "Silence," she commanded. The woman smiled coldly. "My name is Mrs. Elizabeth, royal advisor to the throne. And this is Princess Clare, granddaughter of King James III. Michael stared at Clare like he was seeing a ghost. His phone crashed to the floor. But how did Clare go from being thrown out in the rain to becoming a princess? The answer begins 6 months earlier, on the worst night of her life. The pain started just after midnight. Clare gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, her breath catching in her throat. The mansion was silent and cold around her. The kind of silence that made her feel like she was drowning. "Michael," she called out weakly. "Michael, please. The baby is coming." No answer came from upstairs. Clare pressed her hand against her swollen belly and took small, shaking steps toward the stairs. Each contraction felt like fire spreading through her body. She stopped halfway across the marble floor, leaning against the wall. Her forehead was wet with sweat. Her legs trembled like leaves in the wind. "Michael," she called again, louder this time. Her voice cracked with desperation. "Please, I need you." Still nothing. She climbed the stairs slowly, one hand on the railing, the other on her stomach. Each step felt like climbing a mountain. When she reached the bedroom, she pushed the door open. Michael was sitting on the edge of the bed, his phone in his hand. The screen light lit up his face in the darkness. He didn't even look up. "Michael," Clare whispered, her voice desperate. "The baby. I need to go to the hospital now. Please." He glanced at her for 1 second. His face showed nothing. No worry, no care. Just irritation, like she was interrupting something important. "Again?" he asked flatly. "You've been saying that for 3 days, Clare." "This time it's real," she said, tears forming in her eyes. "Please, I can't do this alone. The contractions are getting closer. She's coming." Michael stood up slowly. He straightened his shirt and looked at her from head to toe. The way someone looks at something broken they no longer want to fix. "Where is my mother?" he asked coldly. "I don't know," Clare said as another contraction hit her. She bent forward, gripping her stomach. "Please, Michael. We need to go now." He walked past her without touching her. His shoulder brushed hers as he left the room. Clare stood there for a moment, tears stinging her eyes. She felt like her heart was being squeezed by an invisible hand. Downstairs she heard voices. Sharp, loud, familiar. The voices that had made her life a nightmare for the past year. Clare forced herself to move. She walked slowly down the stairs, holding the railing tightly. Her whole body shook now. When she reached the bottom, she saw them. Michael, his mother Mrs. Williams, his father Mr. Williams, and his sister Diana. They were standing in the living room like they were having a casual chat. "She's in labor," Michael said, his tone flat and bored. Mrs. Williams's eyes narrowed. She crossed her arms and studied Clare like she was inspecting a stain on expensive fabric. "How do you know it's labor?" Mrs. Williams asked coldly. Clare blinked. "What?" "I said," Mrs. Williams repeated slowly, "how do you know it's labor? You've been dramatic for weeks. Maybe you're just hungry. Maybe you're just tired." Claire's mouth opened, but no words came out. Another contraction ripped through her body and she cried out in pain. But would anyone in this house help her? Or was something far worse about to happen? Clare doubled over, gasping for air. Her vision blurred with tears and pain. "Please," she whispered. I need help. The baby is coming. I can feel it. Mrs. Williams stepped forward. Her heels clicked sharply on the marble floor. Each click felt like a hammer hitting Claire's chest. She stopped a few feet away, close enough that Claire could smell her expensive perfume. Let me ask you something, Mrs. Williams said softly, her voice like poisoned honey. What did the doctor say the baby is? Claire swallowed hard. Her throat felt like sandpaper. A girl. The room went completely still. The air felt heavy, thick, suffocating. Mrs. Williams's face hardened. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Mr. Williams shifted on his feet but said nothing. Diana smirked and looked down at her nails. A girl, Mrs. Williams repeated slowly. Her voice was pure ice. After everything we've given you, you're giving us a girl? Yes, Claire said quietly. A baby girl. Mrs. Williams turned to Michael. Did you hear that? A girl. After all this time, she's giving you a useless girl. Michael said nothing. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, staring at the floor. Claire's legs felt weak. Another contraction came, stronger this time. She bent forward, her knees buckling. Please, she begged. Please, I need to go to the hospital. Mrs. Williams laughed. It was short and bitter and cruel. You want us to take you to the hospital? For what? To birth a useless girl? To waste our money on someone who will bring us nothing? She's not useless, Claire said through her tears. She's your granddaughter. She's a human being. She's nothing. Mrs. Williams snapped, her voice rising. This family needs a boy. An heir. A strong son who will carry on our name. Not some weak, worthless girl. Claire looked at Michael, her eyes pleading. Michael, please, she whispered. Say something. Stand up for me. Stand up for your daughter. He finally looked at her. His gaze was cold, empty, dead. My mother is right, he said quietly. We needed a son. The words hit Claire like a physical blow. She staggered back, her hand pressed against the wall. You agree with her? Claire asked, her voice breaking. You agree that our daughter is worthless? Yes, Michael said simply. No emotion. Just cold, hard truth. Another contraction ripped through Claire's body. This one was different. Stronger. More urgent. She cried out and fell to the floor. The impact sent pain shooting through her knees. Help me, she gasped, looking up at them through her tears. Please, someone help me. I'm dying. The baby is dying. No one moved. Mrs. Williams watched with her arms crossed, face cold and unmoved. Mr. Williams turned his head away. Diana smiled, actually smiled. Get out, Mrs. Williams said. Her voice was calm and final. Get out of this house. You and that useless thing in your belly. Claire stared at her, unable to believe what she was hearing. You can't mean that. I mean every single word, Mrs. Williams said. She turned to Michael. Tell her what we discussed. Michael looked at Claire. For one brief second, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. Then it was gone. Leave, he said quietly. Michael, I'm your wife, Claire sobbed. This is your child. Your daughter. I don't want her, he said flatly. I don't want either of you. The words shattered something inside Claire. Something that could never be put back together. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't hold her. Mrs. Williams pointed at her like she was pointing at garbage. Security? Get her out of here. Now. What would happen to Claire and her baby in the cold night outside? 2 security guards appeared from the hallway. They walked toward Claire slowly, their faces uncomfortable but obedient. They had families to feed. Jobs to keep. They couldn't say no. Madam, please, one of them said softly, bending down beside Claire. You need to leave. I can't walk, Claire gasped, her whole body shaking with pain. The baby is coming right now. The guard looked at Mrs. Williams, his eyes questioning, hoping she would change her mind. Mrs. Williams waved her hand dismissively. I don't care. Carry her out. Drag her if you must. Just get her away from my sight. The guards bent down and lifted Claire gently, trying not to hurt her. She cried out in pain as they carried her toward the door. Every movement sent fresh waves of agony through her body. She reached out toward Michael, her hand trembling. Michael, she sobbed. Please don't do this. Please, I love you. Don't throw us away. He turned his back slowly and walked toward the stairs without looking back. The guards carried Claire outside into the cold night. Rain had just started, light at first, then heavier. They set her down carefully on the wet ground near the gate under a small tree. We're sorry, madam, one of them whispered. We have to follow orders. We have families. We can't lose our jobs. Then they walked back inside. The gate closed behind them with a heavy clang that echoed through the night. Clare lay there on the ground, rain soaking through her clothes. Her body shook violently. Cold, pain, fear. All of it mixed together. The contractions were coming faster now. Stronger. Unbearable. She could feel the baby moving, fighting to come out. "Help!" she whispered into the dark. "Somebody please. Anybody." No one came. She tried to crawl toward the road, using every ounce of strength she had left. But the pain was too much. Her arms gave out. She collapsed again, her cheek pressed against the wet pavement. Her vision blurred. Her breath came in short, desperate gasps. She could feel consciousness slipping away like water through her fingers. "Please, God," she whispered, her lips barely moving. "Please save my baby. She doesn't deserve this. Please." Then through the rain and darkness she saw headlights. Bright, coming closer. A car stopped. A door opened. Footsteps ran toward her. "Oh my God," a woman's voice said, filled with horror. "Someone help me. She's in labor. Call an ambulance now." Clare tried to speak. Tried to say thank you. Tried to say please help my baby. But the darkness pulled her under like deep water. Everything went black. When Clare opened her eyes, she was in a hospital bed. The room was bright and clean. A steady beeping sound filled the air. Machines surrounded her. She blinked slowly, trying to remember where she was. Then she heard it. A soft cry. Tiny, fragile, beautiful. "My baby," Clare whispered, panic flooding through her. "Where's my baby?" A nurse appeared beside her, smiling gently. "She's right here, Mama. Don't worry. She's safe." The nurse brought a tiny bundle wrapped in pink cloth and placed her gently in Clare's arms. The weight felt like the whole world. "Congratulations," the nurse said warmly. "You have a beautiful baby girl." Clare looked down at her daughter's face. She was small, so small but perfect. Her tiny fingers curled into little fists. Her eyes were closed. Her lips were pink and soft. "Is she okay?" Clare asked, her voice trembling. "She's perfect," the nurse said. 10 fingers, 10 toes, strong lungs, healthy heart. She's a fighter just like her mama. Tears spilled down Clare's cheeks. "Hi," she whispered to her baby. "I'm your mama. I'm so sorry for everything. But I promise you, I will never let anyone hurt you again." The baby's eyes opened slightly. Dark and clear and beautiful. "I'm going to name you Joy," Clare whispered. "It means princess, because that's what you are." But Clare had no money, no home, no plan. How would she survive? And who was the woman who saved her life? Clare stayed in the hospital for 3 days. She had nowhere to go, but she had Joy. And for now that was enough. She held her daughter, fed her, sang to her softly. On the 3rd day, a woman walked into her room. She was tall and elegant, dressed in a long flowing dress. Her hair was wrapped in a beautiful headscarf with gold thread. Her eyes were warm but sharp. "Clare?" the woman asked, her voice smooth and cultured. Clare looked up from feeding Joy. "Yes." The woman smiled gently. "My name is Elizabeth. I'm the one who found you on the road." Clare's eyes widened. Her breath caught. "You saved us." Elizabeth nodded and sat down in the chair beside the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Better," Clare said quietly. "Thank you. I can never repay you. You saved my life. You saved my daughter's life." Elizabeth waved her hand. "You don't need to thank me. I did what anyone should do." She paused, studying Clare's face carefully. "But I have a question. Why were you alone on that road in the middle of labor, in the rain, with no help?" Clare looked down at Joy. The memories came flooding back. The pain. The rejection. The gate closing. "They kicked me out," Clare whispered. "Who?" Elizabeth asked gently. "My husband. His family. They didn't want a girl. They said she was useless. They threw me out like I was garbage." Elizabeth's face hardened. Her hands gripped the armrest of the chair. "What is your husband's name?" "Michael Williams," Clare whispered. Elizabeth went very still. Her entire body tensed. Her eyes narrowed. Then she leaned forward slowly. "Michael Williams. Son of Mr. and Mrs. Williams, the business family in Lagos." Clare nodded, surprised. "You know them?" Elizabeth's jaw tightened. She looked away for a moment, taking a deep breath. Then she looked back at Clare, and there was something dangerous in her eyes. Something that promised justice. "Yes," Elizabeth said quietly. "I know them." There was so much weight in those words. So much anger hidden beneath the calm surface. "Clare," Elizabeth said softly. "Look at me." Clare looked up, confused by the intensity in Elizabeth's voice. Elizabeth reached into her bag and pulled out a small photograph. It was old, the edges worn. She handed it to Clare carefully. "Do you recognize this woman?" Clare stared at the photograph. It was faded, yellowed with time. A young woman with soft eyes and a gentle smile. High cheekbones. Full lips. Dark, beautiful skin. She looked familiar. Very familiar. "She looks like me," Clare whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "Yes," Elizabeth said quietly. "She does." Clare's heart started to beat faster. "Who is she?" Elizabeth took a slow breath. Her name was Queen Amanda. She was the princess of our kingdom, the Riverside Kingdom. 26 years ago she disappeared. She was stolen as a baby from the palace. Clare's hands began to tremble. "Why are you telling me this?" Elizabeth leaned closer. Her voice was low and steady and absolutely certain. "Because Clare, you are her daughter. You are the granddaughter of King James. You are royalty. You are a princess." The words hung in the air like magic. Like impossibility. Clare stared at Elizabeth. Then she laughed weakly. "That's impossible. I'm nobody. I grew up in an orphanage. I have no family." "It's not impossible," Elizabeth said firmly. She pulled out another photograph. This one showed Queen Amanda holding a baby. "This is your mother. And this," she pointed at the baby, "is you." Clare's hands shook violently. "How do you know?" "Because I've been searching for you for 26 years, Elizabeth said, her eyes becoming wet. "I am your grandmother's sister. I am your great-aunt. When I saw you on that road when the lights lit up your face, I knew. You have her eyes. Her face. Her spirit." Clare couldn't breathe. Her world was turning upside down. "This can't be real." Elizabeth placed her hand gently on Clare's. "It is real. And your daughter," she looked down at baby Joy, "is a princess. She is the heir to the throne." Clare looked down at Joy. This tiny baby they had called useless. This child they had rejected. She was a princess. And Clare, the woman they had treated like garbage, was royalty. But what would Clare do with this incredible truth? And what would happen to the family who threw her away? 6 months had passed since that day in the hospital. Now, Clare stood in the royal palace in Abuja, staring at her reflection in a tall mirror. She barely recognized herself. Her hair was styled elegantly with gold thread and small jewels. Her dress was made of silk with gold embroidery. Around her neck hung a heavy necklace passed down through generations of queens. Behind her, Elizabeth smiled with pride. "You look exactly like your mother." Clare touched the necklace gently. "I still can't believe this is real." "Believe it," Elizabeth said. "You are Princess Clare, daughter of Queen Amanda, granddaughter of King James. And your daughter, little Joy, is next in line to the throne." At the sound of her name, baby Joy giggled from her crib. She was bigger now, stronger. Her cheeks were round and healthy. Clare walked over and lifted her gently. "Hello, my princess," she whispered. "Are you ready to go home?" Joy grabbed her mother's finger with a surprisingly strong grip. Elizabeth's face became serious. "Are you ready? To return? To face them?" Clare thought of Michael. His cold eyes. His empty words. His cowardice. She thought of Mrs. Williams's cruel voice. The rain. The pain. The gate closing. "Yes," Clare said quietly, but her voice was steel. "I'm ready." And that was how Clare found herself standing in the Williams mansion living room that morning, watching the family who had rejected her turn pale with shock. Mrs. Williams picked up the official document Elizabeth had placed on the table. Her hands trembled as she read. Every page made her face lose more color. "This can't be real," Mrs. Williams whispered. "It is," Elizabeth said coldly. "Every word. Every seal. Every signature. Clare is royalty. She always has been. You simply didn't know it." Elizabeth turned to baby Joy in Clare's arms. "And this precious child is Princess Joy. Next in line to the throne. The future queen." Mrs. Williams's eyes locked onto Joy. The same baby she had called useless. The same baby she had said was worthless. That baby was wearing a crown. Michael stepped forward, his whole body shaking. "Clare," he said quietly, his voice cracking. "I didn't know. If I had known." "You would have what?" Clare interrupted. Her voice was calm but cut like ice. "You would have kept me? Loved me? Treated your daughter like she mattered?" Michael's mouth opened, but no words came out. "You didn't throw me out because you didn't know I was a princess," Clare said, stepping closer. "You threw me out because I gave you a daughter. You threw me out because your mother told you to. You threw me out because you're weak." Her voice rose now. You threw me out while I was dying. While your daughter was being born. You turned your back while I begged. That has nothing to do with knowing I was a princess. That has everything to do with you being worthless. Michael fell to his knees, sobbing. Claire, please. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Claire looked down at him. Her face showed nothing. No pity. No forgiveness. Nothing. Mrs. Williams's face flushed red. How dare you speak to my son that way? How dare I? Claire's eyes blazed. You called my daughter useless. You left me on the street in the rain while I was in labor. You watched me beg and scream. You ordered your guards to throw me out like trash. Claire stepped closer to Mrs. Williams, who actually backed up in fear. You left me there to die. You left your granddaughter to die. Elizabeth stepped forward. The Royal Council has been informed of everything. How you abandoned a pregnant woman during labor. How you endangered the life of a member of the royal family. Your actions have been classified as crimes against the crown. Mr. Williams found his voice. We didn't know who she was. Ignorance is not an excuse, Elizabeth said sharply. Cruelty is cruelty regardless of who the victim is. If she had been a common woman, would that make your actions acceptable? No one answered. Elizabeth pulled out her phone and pressed one number. Begin the process, she said. Within minutes, sirens filled the air. Police cars pulled up outside. Officers walked up the driveway with official documents and warrants. A senior officer entered. Mrs. Williams, you are under investigation for child endangerment and violation of human rights. You must come with us for questioning. Mrs. Williams's eyes went wide with horror. What? No. This can't be happening. You're not being arrested yet, the officer said. But formal charges are likely based on the evidence already submitted. Evidence? Mrs. Williams's voice rose to a scream. Elizabeth held up a tablet. Security footage from your own compound showing you ordering the guards to remove a woman in active labor. Hospital records showing the condition Claire arrived in. Hypothermia, severe dehydration, complications from delayed medical care. Witness statements from the guards who carried her out. Medical testimony about how close both mother and child came to death. She looked directly at Mrs. Williams. You left a paper trail of your own cruelty. Mrs. Williams looked at Michael desperately, grabbing his shirt. Do something. Call our lawyers. Fix this. Michael stood frozen, tears streaming down his face. Claire, please. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but please. I'll do anything. Anything. Claire walked closer to him and looked into his eyes. The same eyes she had once loved. You had a choice that night, Michael. You could have stood up for me. You could have protected your wife. You could have protected your daughter. You could have been a man instead of a coward. She paused, letting the silence stretch. But you didn't. You chose your mother over us. You chose cruelty over compassion. You chose her approval over your family's life. Her voice grew stronger. Now live with that choice. Live with knowing you threw away a princess. Live with knowing you rejected the future queen. Live with knowing you're the man who turned his back on his own child. Michael's face crumpled completely. He sobbed openly, his whole body shaking. Claire turned away from him and walked toward the door, Elizabeth beside her. Baby Joy yawned softly in her mother's arms, completely peaceful. As they reached the exit, Claire stopped and turned back one final time. The entire family was frozen. Michael on his knees. Mrs. Williams being led away by officers. Mr. Williams sitting in shock. Diana staring at the floor. By the way, Claire said, her voice carrying clearly, my lawyers will be delivering divorce papers within the week. I'm taking back my family name. My real name. The name I should have always had. She adjusted Joy on her hip. My daughter will grow up in a palace. She will grow up surrounded by love. She will grow up knowing exactly who she is. She will be educated by the finest teachers. She will be trained to lead. She will want for nothing. Claire's voice grew stronger. She will never feel unwanted. She will never feel worthless. She will never know what it means to be rejected because she's a girl. She looked directly at Mrs. Williams, who was being handcuffed now. Because she is Princess Joy, heir to the throne, future queen. And I will spend every single day making sure she never forgets her worth. Her eyes swept across the family one last time. You had royalty in your house. You had a future queen in your family. And you threw us away like garbage. She smiled coldly. I hope it was worth it. With those final words hanging in the air like a curse, Claire walked out. The doors closed behind her with a sound like thunder. The royal guards opened the SUV doors. Claire climbed in carefully. As the convoy pulled away, she looked down at Joy. "We're going home," she whispered, kissing her forehead. "To a place where you will be loved. Where you will be celebrated. Where you will know your worth." Joy smiled up at her mother, her tiny hand wrapped around Claire's finger. And for the first time in a long time, Claire smiled back. A real smile. A smile of peace and power and absolute victory. Behind them, the mansion grew smaller until it disappeared completely. Claire never looked back again. 3 months later, the Williams family business collapsed completely. Royal contracts were pulled without explanation or appeal. Business partners withdrew, not wanting any association with the scandal. Banks refused loans. Investors pulled all funding. Their name, once powerful and feared, became a symbol of cruelty and rejection. Everywhere they went, people whispered, pointed, judged. Mrs. Williams stood trial. The courtroom was packed with journalists and curious citizens. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage, hospital records, witness testimonies, medical reports. Her lawyers were expensive. The best money could buy. They found legal technicalities. They argued about jurisdiction. They questioned procedures. They fought every charge with everything they had. In the end, Mrs. Williams avoided prison. But the victory was hollow and meaningless. Because though she escaped jail, she could not escape judgment. She became known everywhere as the woman who threw away a princess. The woman who left a pregnant girl to die in the rain. The woman who called a future queen worthless. Everywhere she went, the whispers followed. At the market. At church. At social events. People turned their backs. Former friends avoided her. Invitations stopped coming. Her phone stopped ringing. She had lost everything that truly mattered. Respect. Reputation. Dignity. Peace. Michael tried to reach Claire hundreds of times. Letters. Emails. Phone calls. He showed up at the palace gates in Abuja, begging the guards to let him see his daughter. Every message went unanswered. Every call was ignored. Every letter was returned unopened, the royal seal stamped across it like a final judgment. The palace guards turned him away every single time, their faces respectful but firm. Meanwhile, Claire and Joy lived in the magnificent royal palace. It was filled with light and music and laughter and love. Surrounded by family who celebrated them. Surrounded by people who bowed to them not out of fear but out of genuine respect. Joy grew strong and bright and confident. Her laughter filled the palace halls. She learned to walk early, running through the palace gardens, chasing butterflies. She learned to talk, calling Claire Mama, and calling King James Grandpa King. She was loved by everyone who met her. Adored by the entire kingdom. Claire sat at royal councils now, making decisions that affected thousands of lives. She created programs to help abandoned mothers. She built shelters for pregnant women with nowhere to go. She established laws protecting women and girls from discrimination. She used her voice. She used her power. She used her pain to create change, to make sure no one else would ever suffer what she had suffered. One quiet evening, as Claire rocked Joy to sleep in the royal nursery, Elizabeth came into the room. Her face was serious. "Michael has requested an audience again," Elizabeth said quietly. "He's begging. He says he's changed. He says he wants to meet his daughter." Claire was quiet for a long moment. She looked down at her sleeping daughter, her hand still stroking Joy's soft hair. Then she shook her head slowly but firmly. "No." Elizabeth nodded. "I thought you would say that. They didn't ask for forgiveness when I was on the ground begging for my life," Claire said softly, but her voice was absolutely firm. "They didn't care when I was suffering. They didn't care when I was dying. They didn't care about their granddaughter when she was being born in the rain." She looked up at Elizabeth. "They only care now because I have power. Because I have status. Because I'm not the nobody they thought they could throw away and forget." She looked back down at Joy, her heart swelling with fierce protective love. "Let them live with their choices just like I've learned to live with mine. They chose cruelty. Now they can taste the consequences." Elizabeth smiled with approval and pride. "You are truly your mother's daughter." Claire kissed Joy's forehead gently, breathing in her sweet baby smell. "And she is mine." And in that quiet moment, in a palace far from the place that once rejected her, in a room filled with love instead of cruelty, surrounded by people who celebrated her instead of diminishing her, Claire finally found complete peace. Real peace. Deep peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing your worth. The kind that comes from knowing you survived. The kind that comes from knowing you won. The kind that comes from knowing the people who tried to destroy you actually set you free. And every night before Joy went to sleep, Claire would hold her close and whisper, "You are a princess. Not because of your title but because of your heart. Never forget that. Never let anyone make you feel small. You are royalty. You are powerful. You are loved. Always remember you were born into greatness. And nothing anyone says can ever take that away from you. Anne Joy would smile sleepily and say, "Yes, Mama?" And Claire would close her eyes and thank God for the rain that night. For the rejection that led to discovery. For the pain that led to power. For the loss that led to finding herself. For the cruelty that revealed her true family. For the closed door that opened a palace. Because sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever happened. Sometimes what looks like the end is actually the beginning. Sometimes being thrown away is actually being set free. We've come to the end of today's story. I hope it touched your heart. Thanks for watching and staying with us till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?